Hi, everyone, and thank you for taking a minute to kind of sit with me today as we kind of go through and talk about something that we have talked about before. Is this idea of change? Change happens in an ever evolving professional landscape. The concept of having a linear, lifelong career is becoming increasingly obsolete. The idea of working 30, 40 plus years and getting the gold watch, so to speak. Those days are gone. Today's workforce is characterized by frequent changes. And even today, think about the market. You think about what's going on in the world. You think about what we're experiencing even within this year as an election year in the United States, and how tumultuous that is. And even when you watch the news, what's going on with certain even some of the candidates for president of the United States. It is incredibly tumultuous, and all of this, you know, impacts those who are in their careers. And it also impacts those who are looking into a possible career transition, because these frequent changes, they're driven by technological advancements. I mean, this week I was even having a conversation with someone as it pertained to artificial intelligence, and I asked him, I said, what percentage of your job eventually could be done by AI? And he was really honest. He said 100%. So if you are in a situation, or you are presented with a future that might look kind of bleak, then it is really important for you to have kind of like a strategy on what you can do and how you can navigate change a little bit better. Because you think about just how fragile peace is in our world. I mean, right now there's a growing conflict in the Middle East that could turn into outright war, and this is going to have a terrific, seismic shift in the economic tide as it pertains to even some of the global petro dollar, and the idea of how that commodity circles the globe. In certain countries of the world have more supply and they're trying to sell it. It just becomes incredibly difficult to predict what's going to happen. And what this does, the media seems to feed on this. They feed on this frenetic change, chaotic kind of life the times that we're living in. And it just, to me, what this provides is an opportunity for us as leaders, as workers, to maybe shift the way in which we're thinking about change in our careers, to having more of an emphasis on maybe personal fulfillment and having a life that you want to live, that is a life that you're choosing to live. Because this idea of career transitions, there are opportunities for reinvention and growth, but the idea that if you are a worker and you do a good job, you meet or exceed your job requirements and demands, you're not guaranteed that you're not going to be asked to leave, in 6 months to a year. I think most people that I know they don't work on a contract. I do know some people that do have a contract, and in some ways they still have to perform, but they're kind of saved in some ways by this contract. But for most of us who don't work, we don't have a contract. And the reality is that the career transitions, even though, like I had multiple conversations with folks this week who are in the middle of a career transition, and it wasn't their choice. They didn't want to step into this void of unknown. And they are literally, they're stuck and lost because they don't know what the next steps are. It is true that these career transitions, they can be stepping stones of hope for a career that aligns with how you want to grow yourself personally and professionally. But the reality is, for most of us, when we're in the middle of a change like that, that's not how it feels. It does not feel like a wonderful opportunity. It actually comes to us in such a way that it is absolutely shocking. So the idea is that these career transitions, they can take many forms. it can be where maybe you're shifting to a different industry. I was talking to someone even this morning who is wanting to make a completely different shift from one industry to the next. And she has a tremendous expert level of knowledge in a very specific area, a niche in a industry. And she's thinking about going into something else. And she's absolutely capable and I want the best for her. But the point is that I don't think she understood or realized the enormity of that transition, that kind of shift and shifting into a different industry. The way that the job market is today, with the folks that are the recruiters and the people that are the front end folks, and even the people just right after the technology, because a lot of people, they apply online and they're not getting letters of confirmation that, we see you, you're a human being, we want to treat you with dignity, honor, and respect, and here's our process for hiring. People aren't getting that at all. I mean, they're getting zero, they're getting crickets. It's silent. So the idea of, if you are applying to jobs, the recruiters who are you might actually get a human to have an interview with you to kind of as a kind of a filter. They're not equipped right now to understand how a person in industry A could actually be a really good fit for industry B, because there are transferable skills. Those folks do not have the ability right now to understand that there are transferable skills that are 100% transferable. But what they're looking for is a 100% match on the requirements and the duties and the workload that is right before them. They're not able to use their imagination or their experience, because they don't have a lot of experience. A lot of them are fairly new in their role. So the idea that these career transitions, if you're wanting to climb the corporate ladder or climb your career ladder, at least starting a new role within a company or even venturing into maybe entrepreneurship, these career transitions can be absolutely daunting. They can be overwhelming. So each of these career transitions brings its own set of challenges and opportunities. And it's important that we learn how to kind of take care of ourselves as we're trying to successfully manage these kinds of new opportunities and challenges. And the idea of, I think about AI and how AI is kind of changing and impacting the market. Even again, another conversation this week I had with someone. It's very clear that the industry that they're in is in the middle of a massive disruption, and it's not just this particular industry I'm thinking of. It happened to be real estate. There are many industries that are just absolutely just frothing at foaming with change, and for some folks, that's going to be a huge opportunity to maybe create a big win. For a lot of us in the midst of trying to find work, that can be almost debilitating, because we don't know what to do. So one of the things I would just encourage you, as you're thinking about what this can mean for you, is this concept of owning your career. And what I mean by owning your career, there's a quote by Steve Jobs, and he says this. He says, "Your work is going to fill a large part of your life. And the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work. And the only way to do great work is to love what you do." And I wholeheartedly believe that. So I would absolutely encourage you, if you are looking for, if you're in the midst of a career transition or a change, and if you're going to go do something or find a job, try to find a job that you enjoy doing, that you love it. But I would also kind of tag on at the end of that, owning your career and owning your career path. It's about proactively steering your professional journey. And it's important for you to understand that you have to align your journey and your career path with what you personally value, what are your personal skills, and what are your passions. And this begins with this idea of kind of a self-reflection to understand, really what are your, there are three questions I think that are important to understand in driving your career. The first question is who am I? Who am I? And that's obviously a question that's all around this notion of identity, of knowing who you are, knowing, kind of what you bring to the party as it pertains to your strengths, the skills that you bring, that you're really, really good at these strengths, these competencies, these skills. And then what are your strongest behaviors? These behaviors are kind of hardwired into who you are, and you're going to exhibit these behaviors no matter what. And when you understand your strengths, your behaviors, even your personality, because we all have a different kind of personality. I mean, there are essentially 16 kinds of personalities, but the point is that once you understand your own personality, you can start to begin to understand others. And there's a model I use, and there's 9 personalities. And then lastly is, what is it that you value? So when you ask the question, who am I? This is the beginning of how you can actually own your career. When you and it's impossible, I think, in my opinion, it's impossible for you to own your career and to drive your career if you do not know the answer to that question of who am I? And that is absolutely an existential question. It's a philosophical question. It's a theological question. It's an emotional question. So I would encourage you to find the answer to that question, because it's an important question to answer, not just for your career, but also for your life. So the second question I would ask, so there's 3 questions. The first question is, who am I? The second question is, what do I want? What is it that I want? And it's important for you to answer, like, sub questions underneath what do I want is also what I don't want. And when you become really super clear, and I mean just absolutely crystal clear on what it is you don't want, and for some of us, like the kind of family I grew up in, I grew up what I call kind of like a very divided home. There was a lot of enmity. There was a lot of fighting. There was a lot of abuse. I did not grow up in a peaceful environment. So for me, when I went through this process years ago, and I went through this exact same process I'm encouraging you to consider as it pertains to driving your career, because I really wrestled and struggled and really worked hard on understanding who it is, who am I and my identity. And secondly, what it is that I wanted. But in order to get clear on what you want, you have to go through the question of what is it you don't want. So I have such a crystal clear idea of what I don't want in my life. And a lot of it goes back to my family of origin, what I don't want to experience that I experienced as a child. There are things in my life that I absolutely hate, and they're directly connected to the kind of life that I had to live and the kind of life I didn't have any power as a child. Most children don't. So we're just children. So the kinds of things that I viscerally just despise, that really fuels what I want in my life. And I think you need to go through a similar kind of journey. And then tied with this notion of what is it that I want, which includes what you don't want, but it's also very important to uncover, discover, and work on what is it that you're offering. What is it that you're offering that's tied to what you want? And an offering is what you're giving the world that you can get paid to do in order for you to get the exchange of remuneration coming back to you in the form of payment for you giving some sort of service or product. So that's really important to understand. So who am I? What do I want? And then lastly, what do I do? What do I do with this? Because if you don't have a plan and how to put that offer into effect or into reality, then what you have is just it's like now what? It's like, I mean, so many people they're not clear on those 3 questions. They don't know who they are, they don't know what they want, and they don't know what to do. And if you are in the midst of a career transition, please, if anything, just stop right here and just write down those 3 questions. Because it's impossible for you to navigate a career transition, literally impossible for you to navigate that without understanding and having answers for those 3 questions. It's pure and simple. If you do not know the answer to who am I, what do I want, and what do I do, then you're going to be perpetually stuck. So career transitions are a part of life. They're a part of our career. They're going to come. Sometimes they come quite abruptly. And what I'm suggesting is that we drive our career, that we're the ones that are at the steering wheel of our career, and we're not thinking about letting someone else plan our career, because we have to have a career plan. There's a quote by Peter Drucker. He's a famous, probably business expert, more than author. He said the best way to predict your future is to create it, and that goes along with even owning or driving your career, because you're the one that kind of creates it. But crafting a personal career plan, This, I think, can be a fundamental exercise. And this is also what we kind of answer in this idea of what do I do? Because this idea of this career plan is an exercise that shapes your professional, present and also your future. It represents the critical intersection of maybe what you're aspiring to do. Again, also it encompasses what we talked about before, even in and who am I, when we visit and revisit this notion of what are your strengths, what are your behaviors, what are your personality, what are your values. All those things are really super important to understand, because they kind of overlap or actually overlay one another. And when you see it kind of like a Venn diagram, you see one circle, then there's another circle, and there's a third and fourth circle. Right in the middle is really kind of the core of it. But that's all about having a career plan. It is absolutely possible for you to have a career plan. Now, back a long time ago, when I was moving away from engineering, I went into management consulting for a time, and I was working with a small boutique company out of Scottsdale, Arizona, and I was in charge of writing business plans. And this is back in the early 90s. I was writing business plans for companies to get funded so that the bank or maybe a private placement or private offering would try to raise money for a business. And back then, it was me and another colleague. We were writing these business plans, and we'd literally provide a business plan. I'm not going to, this is like a binder, but it was literally like that thick. I mean, like incredibly thick. And we would take it, and we learned it because we got such a reaction. We would plop this gigantic, 300 plus page business plan on the banker's desk. Boom. And the banker never read it. I mean, honestly, even then, he or she kind of just flipped through it and saw that there may have been if they knew what they were doing, they may have gone to the very, very end to look at their pro forma. But the idea of a plan was so like, oh, these guys have a plan. They have a plan. And and there was such a scarcity of people that had a plan back then in the wild west days of, this is even during the savings and loan, back before the savings and loans went away. There was savings and loans in the United States, and they were handing out money easily. And the point is that I was a part of writing those business plans, and they were very, very thorough. And I was new in my career, and I learned how to kind of plan, kind of create, kind of think through kind of a framework. And I enjoyed it to some extent. But what drove me nuts was this. I after writing like my fourth or fifth, I probably wrote, I don't know, up to 20 different business plans over the course of a few years. Just a crazy amount of writing. And what became crystal clear to me after maybe like the fourth or fifth business plan was this. They're never going to do it. Now, for some of us, you might think, what do you mean? There's a business plan. You have to follow your business plan. Yeah, that's true. I mean, in some instances, they might follow the business plan. They might follow the executive summary, which is a one-pager. But they're never going to read the whole plan. No one, I mean, really, literally, no one would read the whole plan. And that was a little discouraging, but I kind of got used to that. So really, this was kind of like meeting the weight test for the bankers. But the point is about the plan. You got to have a career plan, but it's got to be your plan. But I knew this. Once I submitted a business plan, I knew that plan wasn't going to be followed to a T. So I learned very early on that I couldn't be married to this idea that they had to do my plan, verbatim, precisely. And the same is going to be true for you for your career plan. You put together a career plan, put together a great, look at this picture. You think this guy is looking at all this kind of that could be a plan. You can't be married to the plan. But you got to create one, and then you've got to adapt and iterate. You got to begin, and then you've got to work on A. But you might not go to B. You might go to C, then back to B, then D, then F, then H, and then back to I. The point is that it's not about creating a plan and you have to sticking to it. You create a plan and then you iterate, because it does take this idea of iteration. Because it's the career plan has got to be based on you, and that this person is actually pointing to you. And it's important to understand that if it's not about you, then who is it for? Because your career plan and you owning your career, it has to be based upon you. So that's kind of an obvious thing. But the idea of embracing change, I mean, the idea of the only constant in life is change. We've got to embrace change and cultivate this idea of being adaptable, agile, flexible. The idea of resilience, nimbleness, and resourcefulness. Resiliency is the cornerstone, enables us to recover from setbacks. Nimbleness or agility is about quickly and efficiently kind of switching gears. Resourcefulness is really super important because it plays a vital role in allowing us to maneuver through career shifts. So those three things, which are important to understand: resiliency, kind of the springiness and bouncing back; nimbleness, it gives us the ability to adapt and change, switch gears; and resourcefulness, it gives us the ability to maneuver and to try different things. When something doesn't work, you try something else. But that's all about embracing change, because change is inevitable and it's coming at us at 100 miles an hour, and it's as 100%, it's unavoidable. And we got to see the warning signs if we're in a situation where there is a sudden career change, where you're called into the office or called into, I mean, for crying out loud, in these last few months, there have been so many social media posts on companies that are abruptly letting people go on a Zoom meeting, which is just incredibly horrible for that to happen. But it's important for you to kind of have your eyes wide open, so to speak, as you're in your career, that you recognize that your boss and your boss's boss, they're not necessarily looking out for your career; they're looking out for theirs. And if you understand that and you really do believe that, then you don't want to be surprised. And if you see warning signs, it's like the old, and they used to do this. They used to bring canaries into the coal mines because there was a certain kind of gas that if there was, I think it was methane, if there was a methane leak as they're digging for coal underground, it would replace the oxygen and the canaries would die. And that's an early warning sign to get the heck out of that coal mine. But the point is if you're in a situation where you are ignoring the canary in the coal mine, you're ignoring those initial warning signs, and you have blinders on, it's really important that you pay attention, because those sudden abrupt career changes can be particularly hard to come back from. Not impossible, but you want to see the warning signs if at all possible. And then lastly, this idea of career exploring. Change is inevitable, but growing through a career change is optional. And it's important to understand that transitioning into a new career or exploring a new career is something I think that you almost have to see this as almost like an avocation in the midst of your vocation, where it's something you might learn to love to do, but it may not be your main job. You guys still have to perform your main job, but you can still explore some opportunities. And a good way to do that is through networking, because people are always looking. And it's absolutely true that, not everyone's aware that they need to own their career, but there are people who really do own their career, and they're networking and they're working hard on their career all the time. I would just encourage you to pay attention to those folks. If you're one of those people that it's harder for you to own your career, it's harder for you to navigate your own career, watch other people and then talk to them. And when you network, it's really important that you solidify that relationship and networking, and it's reciprocal. It's not just about getting, you're also giving, and you can build that relationship and that reciprocity. So that's really it for today. I think that the important thing to kind of think about, the big takeaway in my opinion of this, is that change is just a part of our everyday life. I think it's important to walk away with the idea of understanding when you own your career and when you're in the midst of a change, you really are able to answer those three questions of who am I, what is it that I want, and what do I do? And if you are at all interested in discussing more with me about, even because these are the kinds of things that I talk with other people about um, in my coaching. And if you do want to take the predictive index, I'd be happy to kind of walk you through that. If you also want to join our community, byronlow.com/join. I'm also putting together on the 29th, I'm doing a special chat with Byron on just productivity. I would invite you to come and check that out. But again, I just want to reinforce this. I shared this last week. Oh, it's not going to let me zoom in. You can see little Max there. So there's Max, and there's Mookie, and there's old Zeke who passed away. And these are the things that I love. And I do what I do. My big why is helping other people find their big why. So if you are so inclined and you want to reach out to me, please know that going to any of my websites is an easy way to reach out, and I'd be happy to talk with you at any time. And I do hope that as you're embraced with this momentous change on how you're going to get from here to there, that can be a little overwhelming. And just know that what I do every day in my work is I help people navigate those changes. So I hope this was of an encouragement to you, and I look forward to hearing from you, and have a great rest of your day and a great weekend. You take care. Bye.